Wealth building, great topic when we're talking about real estate. And we, as counselors, advocates for our clients, want to make sure that they're always looking at this. But of course, when they're buying a home, we want them to make sure that that's the most important priority and that they're paying attention to where they're going to live and that it's going to fit their life and their needs every day before they're looking at how it's affected by the market. But the housing market is a pretty big, pretty strong market that nearly everybody is involved in somehow. So if you're talking to renters who are thinking about buying their first home, but they're saying, well, prices might come down. We want to think about it for a little while. We want to save up some money and put a bigger down payment down, or we want to see what happens with interest rates. Maybe they'll come down. They're kind of high right now. Those are all terrible ideas for waiting to purchase a home, especially if they're, living in the wrong place. Now, if they're renting because they don't know where they want to live, or they're not sure that they're going to stay with their job, or they're, testing out a city, that's all valid. And maybe they want to do that for a year or two. But once they know where they want to be, where they want to stay, the disparity in wealth between homeowners and non-homeowners is gigantic. So we want to find ways to help these folks move into homeownership and something they can afford, obviously. We want to keep them fiscally comfortable. But Danielle, what was the statistic from?
It was almost 40-fold difference. So it was approximately across the nation, about $30,000 average net worth of homeowners, whereas renters' average net worth was $8,000.
Wow. Yeah.
And as Ruth said, I mean, this is across the gamut. It could be 18, 19-year-old just getting their first apartment, somebody just starting out in life compared to somebody who's been, living life for decades. But that kind of shows, again, kind of that homeownership is still an American dream type of thing for wealth purposes, long-term strategies. That is a solid way if it's living or investing. Having, real estate as a strategy is still very valid for wealth, for retirement, for security.
Yeah. And so you're going to, you've got to live somewhere. You might as well live somewhere where your money is going to you instead of supporting someone else, unless you're the person that's getting supported by that rent. We want to talk about that too.
Well, but I mean, even if it's a worse situation, we're always talking about if you need to sell, or if you need to move or whatever. Even if it's a losing proposition, which we haven't seen in a long time, where people are buying and 5 years later, 3 years later, 10 years later, they're upside down. It's still, the chances of, kind of average that we're seeing in our area is about $2,000, $2,200 a month for rent for anything more than a 2-bedroom duplex. If you have anything 3 bedrooms or more, it's you're not touching anything under $2,000. So $24,000 a year for those 5 years, for those 10 years, that's $240,000. In my market, people, even if we see a downturn, I'm not going to see houses in my neighborhood be $240,000 underwater.
Right.
So there's still a cost there that they are still saving, even if they're losing.
Yep. And, as long as somebody doesn't need to sell during those times, and that's why, again, we want you to be comfortable in your payment. We want you to have some funds for repairs and maintenance and things that come surprisingly. But
So we want to tell our clients, we want to make sure that our clients understand that, there are risks involved in everything.
Right.
But when we're talking about the cost of living going up, the cost of insurance going up, and all of these other factors that are always going to be a problem for renters and homeowners. But renters are always going to be the ones with the bigger risks. They're always going to be the ones who are losing out 100%. I say this often. Renting is 100% interest. You never see that money back. There's a risk you might not see every dime back buying a house, but in the end, you still have an asset. You have still something that helps. If you get in financial situations, your buyers, your homeowners that you helped, they will have an asset to sell. They might have an asset that they can get an equity loan on. There is a backup plan for them. There is something to fall back on. You rent, you have no assets. There's nothing to fall back on.
Right. And so when we're talking to potential buyers, we're hearing a lot of agents who are saying things like, who are buying into these headlines and pretending that they can predict the future. And they're saying, wait, don't buy now. Prices are going to come down. That's terrible advice. That might be the best option for the person you're talking to. Once you learn more about them and their objectives and their financial situation and their life situation, you could come to the conclusion that waiting is a good idea for them. But just to throw that out there as a blanket, so Danielle and I were giving the example of a potential buyer who a year ago said, I'm going to wait. It looks like prices have gone up and I think they're going to come down. And I want to save up some money. I'm going to wait a year. So here they are, $24,000 in rent later. Prices in our areas have gone up between $50,000 and $100,000, depending on what you're looking for and where. And the interest rates doubled. So that potential buyer has lost well over $100,000, no matter how you look at it.
And they're probably either needing to adjust what they can afford now because they can't afford it at a $75,000 more and double, 6% instead of a 3% interest rate. They might be looking at a whole nother year of renting. And that $2,000 rent, if they're staying in the same place, that landlord might be asking for $2,200 now.
Right.
Or more. So now we're $25,000, $26,000, $28,000, $20,000, $30,000 tacked on to that opportunity loss, that what they lost in risking waiting.
Yeah. Now, of course, a year ago, none of us knew what was going to happen, but that's the point, right? We need to talk to people as individuals, figure out what their objective is, what they need, where they are, what they can afford, and then help them make the best decision for them. You are not the hero because you told them to wait.
And quite honestly, if we're talking about a lot of agents out there talking about just things getting tight for their own business, we're probably not going to convince somebody who bought a house 5 years ago, who is still comfortable in it, who does know that they're at 2 3/4% on their mortgage and still comfortable with their home. We're not going to convince them to sell and buy a new house. So our real goal is to try to figure out the best pool of our next bit of clients. And it's probably going to be downsizers and it's going to be renters. So people who are at retirement age and want to move out of state or want to, they can't get up the stairs, like Ruth said in our live, things where their lives have changed and they need to move. So those people are always going to be out there no matter, what the housing situation is. But then our buyers are going to be, new first-time buyers. And in our area, we have several grants that are now available up to $10,000. There's a $6,000 first-time home buyer forgivable loan. And then there's a couple other programs out there that added several $1,000s more, that might have a payback a slow payback period or a required amount of minimum time that they own, some stipulations, but still, are going to help these people get into the door. And so then that's, a $10,000 is, again, that's kind of free money that waiting, until March to buy to see if anything, drastic happens. Well, guess what? Those houses in March are probably going to be more than $10,000 more if we, if we don't get a crash, which a lot of people aren't saying. So if we're going to, just slow down,
inventory is not really going to go up much in the near future. As you said, many of those sellers have a 3% mortgage that they're not going to walk away from to get into something else. So if you're looking at downsizers who have paid off their house and they're going to pay cash for another one, the interest rate doesn't matter to them.
Correct.
So you can, easily have that conversation. If you're looking at renters who are moving up into their first home, that's the thing you really need to compare it to, that rent that they are never getting back, that is going up, and have that conversation about building wealth in their own home. And then we want to look at investors, not necessarily investors with a capital I, who are looking for, multifamily, 20, 60, 120 unit properties. But the investor who wants to turn a house into a college fund. We were just talking about the Larry Kendall ninja selling idea of buying a rental house when children are young and getting a 15-year mortgage that matches what the income is. And maybe even if it's a couple $100 more, you can just, call that your college savings account. And so at the end of 15 years, when the child is getting ready to go to college, that home is either paid off and all of the rent can be put toward paying off tuition debt, or the house could be sold to pay for tuition. So great ideas for someone who is up to being a landlord. You do want to have the conversation with them about that. That is a part-time job, and it's not completely free money, but there's not a lot of other ways where you can have someone else pay into your child's savings account until they're ready to go to college.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's opportunities out there to find buyers and sellers. There's opportunities out there to, continue to add value and talking in positive ways about building wealth and opportunities in that regard, opposed to being one of those negative agents out there going, it's all over, it's going to be worthless. And realtors are worthless and real estate's worthless and all that negative stuff out there. Be the positive light. And especially if everything else, if they're going in, if they're struggling or worried about potential struggles in the next couple months, be that positive light about saying, Ruth and I have been talking about this book we're reading, The Gain and the Gap, like get them into that game. What can they gain by buying a house? What can they gain by selling and downsizing or changing their lives instead of the worry, that gap area, the worry.
We're not talking about being Pollyanna and ignoring the negatives.
No,
but there's positives and negatives in everything. So why not focus on the good part of it? We don't need to, be dragged down in all of this negativity and nonsense that just, makes the world not as good a place. So
absolutely.
Focus on the positives, help your clients focus on the positive, get them where they need to live, and they will love you for it.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
See you soon.